Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with James Dickman. Coming up tonight, there is no other street in the country where more people have broken the law than Downing Street. Well, that's according to the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, speaking as it's announced that Sue Gray will finally name and shame those in her report into the Partygate scandal. Plans to expand the ULEZ zone to the entirety of Greater London are announced in a bid to crack down on London's toxic air. We'll have an update on London's weather as well in the next 10 minutes, also on the way. As we approach the last game of the Premier League season on Sunday, we'll hear from the managers of London's biggest rivals, desperate for that all-important fourth spot. And free rides are being offered as a trio of electric black cabs hit the roads, offering the service to some lucky Londoners in the next few days to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That's all on the way, but first, the Mayor of London has said that Downing Street operates in a culture of law breaking. It comes as Sue Gray is set to release her report into the Partygate scandal. The senior civil servant is now free to publish her full report on the parties after the Metropolitan Police wound up their investigation. The Met didn't name the 83 individuals who have been fined. The report, though, could leave the PM with more political embarrassment, though. Gray is contacting the ones she wants to name ahead of the publication, which is expected to be next week.
There is no other street in the country where more people have broken the law than Downing Street. There is no other street in the country where more fines have been issued. A culture of law breaking clearly took place in Downing Street. Bring your own bottle, bring your own karaoke machine, bring your own suitcase full of booze, and it beggars belief that at the same time as the Prime Minister was making rules, he was breaking them.
Well, plenty more on all of that and more with our politics man, John Johnson, after the break in a deep dive into the week it's been in Westminster. Well, Sadiq Khan, who we have heard from just there, has also said today he is fighting a war on poisonous air with his plans to consult Londoners to expand the ultra-low emission zone to cover almost all of the capital. The ULEZ boundary will expand from the north and south circular roads to all of Greater London from August 29th next year. Drivers of vehicles which do not comply with minimum emissions standards are charged a daily fee of £12.50 for entering the zone. Well, some Conservative MPs have said this will only worsen the cost of living crisis.
The benefits of the world's first ultra-low emission zone in central London and inner London, we reduced by almost a half the toxic air. We've seen more schools, homes and care homes in central London being in areas where the air is lawful. Unfortunately, we've not seen the same progress in outer London. And when you look at the evidence in relation to those parts of our city which have the largest number of deaths linked with air quality, they're in boroughs in outer London, they're in Barnet, they're in Bromley, they're in Croydon, they're in Havering.
The Mayor again there. Boris Johnson was also questioned about the Partygate scandal today. At a trip to a honey factory in Wales, he said he hopes Sue Gray releases it at its earliest opportunity next week. Well, he was also questioned about a protest held by Jamie Oliver outside Downing Street today. Oliver's Eton Mess protest is to call out the government's U-turn on its anti-obesity strategy, which has seen it delay a ban on buy one, get one free deals for unhealthy food products.
Now, there are lots of things you got to focus on, including diet, eating less, or eating less is the most important thing. But there are some things at the moment where we think they make very little difference to obesity, and they can affect people's weekly outgoings, people's budgets. And at this particular time, if people can save on their food bills with some offers, then I think we've just got to be flexible whilst continuing to tackle obesity.
Prime Minister now. A couple of other headlines for you now. The UK government says it has bought stocks of smallpox vaccine to guard against the monkeypox outbreak, which has been spreading in London and the South East. There isn't a specific vaccine for monkeypox, but a smallpox jab does offer some good protection since the two viruses are quite similar. There are now 20 cases recorded in the UK as of today. Cases of the disease outside Central and West Africa are rare, but some have been occurring recently in Europe, USA, Canada and Australia as well. A man who used a machete to stab a stranger in front of panicked passengers on the London Underground has been convicted of attempted murder. Ricky Morgan of no fixed address launched the unprovoked attack on James Porritt on a train near Green Park on the 9th of July last year. An Old Bailey jury heard Mr. Porritt describe what happened as like being in a horror movie. To football, and Sunday is the final day of the Premier League season this year. The ones to watch of the London teams are Arsenal and Spurs, who are both vying for that coveted fourth spot to gain Champions League football next year. Spurs are currently in pole position, 2 points clear of Arsenal with one game to go. Arsenal will welcome Everton to the Emirates on Sunday, and Tottenham will travel to bottom of the league Norwich. A draw will be enough for Conte's Spurs to guarantee fourth. The two managers have been speaking.
We are back in Europe. We don't know where. Tomorrow it will be decided. Hopefully it will be Champions League, because I believe that tomorrow we're going to do what we have to do, and we are going to be cheering for Norwich to do what they can do for sure. And after that, we're going to take the club to the next level. And that's the ambition. In order to do that, we have a very clear plan again, how we want to do it and execute it. And it's no secrets. We need resources, and we need to increase the quality and the depth of the squad, as long as the same way maintain who we are as a club and the people that we have next to us. And that's going to be the challenge.
The whole season behind this game, and we can reach something of amazing for us, because I think that no one can imagine Tottenham in the top four in this season. And this must be a big push for us, because we work very, very hard. We deserve to stay in this position.
There you go, no less than a win for Arsenal and a loss at Norwich for Spurs. We'll see Arsenal qualify for that Champions League spot, holding on to hope, the Gunners, for Sunday. Also in football, Crystal Palace manager Patrick Vieira will be investigated by the police and the FA after footage of him appearing to kick a fan to the floor at the end of Palace's fixture last night. With Everton emerged, Everton came back from a 2-0 deficit to win 3-2 at Goodison Park. The 3 points which secured the Toffees Premier League football next year. The win officially ended their relegation battle, and it prompted a pitch invasion. And as Vieira was walking off the pitch, images appear to show him being mobbed and antagonised by Everton fans before the Eagles boss eventually kicks out at one, causing him to fall to the floor. Well, Vieira didn't comment on the incident after the game, but Everton boss Frank Lampard had this to say in his post-match press conference.
I feel for Patrick, because I didn't get him at the end because of how it all erupted for us, but I would have said come in with us, you know. We might not have wanted that, but you know, come in with us. I know how managers feel, you know, so I didn't get that. And of course he's running across a pitch of 80 yards across a lot of our fans running on, so it's not easy. But you know what, there's nothing from me, not that I know that there were any issues. It was pure elation of fans that want to stay in the Premier League, that come on the pitch. And you know, I can't complain when I'm up on the director's box, you know, jumping up and down in front of them. You know, it was a special moment for the football club, and I think if done in the right way, let them stay on the pitch and enjoy it for a bit. As long as everyone's behaving and we don't see scenes like we saw the other night, everyone's behaving and they're happy and they go home, let them have their moment.
A look at the weather for you now. Cloud will continue to recede eastwards and showers will gradually ease tonight. Clear and mild overnight as well. Lows of around 11 degrees. Tomorrow we'll see some sunshine in the morning, but patchy cloud will become increasingly widespread throughout the day. Don't rule out any showers later on. Sunday, a similar picture, some more sun perhaps, before a small drop in temperature on Monday, a rainy day as well for the start of the week. Right, before the break, bear with me on this one. Farmers from London and elsewhere are teaming up to create a bee road this weekend to help the species that is vital for all of our survival. Think a motorway services for bees. The news comes on World Bee Day, which is today, and amid some new research suggesting us Londoners don't know what to do when we see a bee in peril and aren't that clued up about the best ways to help them thrive here in the capital. Will farmer Chris explain more?
We just need lots of people to do lots of little things to, in fact, big change. So that's exactly what we've done. And because it's spread over the country, we've called it the bee road, as obviously a play on words. Bee numbers aren't necessarily in decline. It's a certain type of bees that we want for cross-pollination that are in decline. The reason they're in decline is because they have a shorter tongue. Bumblebees, honeybees, they have a long tongue and they can feed off a lot of the crops that we grow anyway on farm, like red clover. If you see one in trouble, just maybe put some sugar water down next to it or something, allow it to get its energy back, and then potentially move it out of harm's way if it's likely to get trodden on.
There you go, bad news for my hay fever, but a sacrifice I'm willing to make for the bees. Right, stay with us. Coming up in just a few short minutes, your roundup of everything you need to know from the last 7 days in Westminster with John Johnson from Politics Home, Partygate, the cost of living crisis, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak's appearance on the rich list announced today as well, and more.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. We're going to take a look at the week in Westminster now with John Johnston, our political analyst from Politics Home. And we're going to start by talking about the Partygate scandal and its goings on. I'm assuming a lot of MPs perhaps thought it had run its course by this week, but perhaps there are a few more twists and turns to come. And of course, Sue Gray's report, it looks like that might actually come out now, John.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was quite a lot of surprise that the investigation had ended and Boris Johnson hadn't been issued with any more fines. When he was fined for that original event, in the scale of things, that was quite low down on people's expectations. I don't think people were expecting him to get fined for that one. So when that happened, I think we were all kind of braced for quite a few more. But he's managed to come through this with only the one fixed penalty notice. Much of the kind of danger, I think, has passed from the Met investigation. But as you said, we now have the Sue Gray report, which will go into a lot more detail, perhaps around the culture in Number 10. And we're expecting that probably to be published in full next week. Politically damaging, but probably not fatal for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if his name does come up a number of times in the report about more rule breaking, which he, as you say, didn't receive a fine for, is he probably just going to shrug that off?
I think we'll have to wait and see what's actually in the report, because you never know, with these kind of things, there could be little parts that are kind of picked up on. Obviously, the opposition are going to go wild with it and really try and hammer the Prime Minister. But, as I said, I think the danger among his own MPs is probably gone. It really depends what's in there. But given that he's only been issued the one fine, it seems unlikely that there's going to be anything really explosive in there, but possibly just more kind of damaging questions about his leadership in Number 10 and about how he controls the whole operation.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the cost of living crisis. There's been a lot of conversation about that in the last week, perhaps the biggest conversation going on right now. And the Tories have kind of stood by their guards in terms of saying that they're not going to take any action on helping or doing any additional measures. But inflation this week just came to a 40-year high, it was announced. Obviously, energy bills through the roof. And of course, MPs voted against a windfall tax to help households with their energy bills. What do you make of all this that's been going on?
I think it was quite interesting to see at PMQs this week that Keir Starmer was saying that a U-turn on this windfall tax was inevitable. There's been reports that Number 10 and Number 11 are kind of at odds over this, and Rishi Sunak quite unhappy that Conservative MPs were ordered to vote against this Labour vote on a windfall tax, because I think it's maybe something that he could see happening down the line. They have been very resistant in doing anything. They didn't want to do an emergency budget. They haven't really announced any further measures, but it seems like the windfall tax is maybe being considered within Number 11. But by ordering MPs to vote against it, it puts him in quite a difficult position and makes it look like an even bigger U-turn if he does want to press ahead with it. So it's an interesting time, an interesting dynamic for Number 11 and Number 10 to be fighting, not completely without precedent. But, tension seems to be running a little bit high at the heart of government on how they're going to deal with the cost of living. Yeah,
Rishi Sunak gave a talk to CBI leaders in the week, and just yesterday they said that perhaps he needs to bring forward some emergency measures and not wait till an autumn budget. Is he likely to do any of that, do you think, or is he going to stand firm?
I think the pressure is definitely growing, and obviously the economic situation around the world is getting worse. They're possibly just waiting to see, maybe mulling over different options. But there is definitely a growing kind of call for them to take tougher action. Some Tory MPs now, maybe not the ones you might expect, coming out and saying, we really need to be doing something a little bit sooner than autumn. But it's a difficult economic situation in the Treasury. They have to find this money from somewhere, and that's possibly why they're looking at, reversing this windfall tax. I'd be very surprised if the government don't take any kind of at least small steps towards helping out households before autumn.
Yeah, and not great PR for the Chancellor today. He was announced on a rich list.
Yeah, absolutely. He was on the Sunday Times rich list. His family, immensely wealthy. His wife has shares in a big company that her father owns. So they're now on the rich list for the first time. It's a very difficult political position to be put in. We're seeing increasing cost of living, people really trying to tighten their belts, but that's not enough because energy prices are going up, general household items going up. The squeeze is being felt by everybody, and to see the Chancellor being put on the rich list is a very difficult position for him to be in. And we've already seen him taking some heat over his tax arrangements, and this is just a kind of further blow against him in terms of the opposition being able to present him as being really out of touch.
Yeah, and when it comes to Labour, I mean, they are clamouring quite hard for a windfall tax. They've made that known. But are they doing enough? Is Sir Keir Starmer doing enough in terms of trying to challenge the government on this? Are they pulling their weight in terms of really trying to push their opposition?
It's very difficult for, an opposition party because they're in this position where they can come up with ideas, or they're told to come up with ideas. They're expected to come up with ideas because they want, the public want to see what they would do differently. Obviously, they can't then get those policies into position, but they can be criticised for them. But I think, we saw it in the local elections. They made it a major plank of their local election campaign. So I think this is something they are going to significantly focus on in the coming months and trying to kind of win support for their ideas and really criticising the government over their lack of action.
Yeah. And finally, John, it would be remiss if we didn't mention it. An MP told to stay at home for some quite sinister allegations this week. Yeah, absolutely. An MP was arrested on suspicion of rape and a number of other charges. There has been a number of MPs recently who have been subject to either police complaints or complaints through Parliament's own grievance system. We've had the Pestminster scandal a few years ago. It seems to be coming up again and just feeds into this wider feeling that there's something deeply wrong in the culture in Westminster, on top of the Partygate stuff and the allegations that people weren't following the rules. We now have, it just feels like a new allegation or a new story every week about MPs and staff within Westminster, really acting either in ways that bring them to the attention of the police or the parliamentary authorities. It's a very difficult position. It's very difficult for staff. They don't know often who is being named, but it really does kind of degrade morale, I think, within Parliament. And there's really got to be some firm steps taken now to make sure that people are safe when they're working in the parliamentary estate. John, thank you very much. John Johnson there with the latest from Westminster and all the goings on there from this week. Bit of a gear change now for those of you walking around central London. Keep your eyes peeled for a free ride. Starting yesterday, a trio of electric black cabs will be in operation until Thursday, the 26th of this month, offering trips with no charge to celebrate the Queen's 70 years on the throne. Well, as well as LVC's own milestone in terms of rolling out the more environmentally friendly black cab. It's all for the celebration. We heard about the scheme ahead of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
It's actually a double celebration because we're celebrating the fact that we've sold 7,000 of our brilliant TX electric cabs, which are very green, help to clean in the atmosphere, really, really beautiful vehicles to drive in. We're celebrating 7,000 sales of that around the world. And coincidentally, the timing is perfect because it's also the Queen's Platinum Jubilee where she's celebrating 70 years on the throne. The three cabs that are offering the free rides are really easy to identify, and hailing them is as easy as hailing a normal cab. Stand up the road, hail the cab as you normally would.
What are you off to, mate? It was good. Jump in.
Well, the TX has been in London since 2018, and we've now got just over 5,000 running around in London. And that accounts for just over a third of all the taxis running in London at the moment. And the great thing about our new TX, it's entirely electrically driven, and that means that its emissions into the atmosphere are extremely low. So since the launch of the vehicle, nearly 110,000 tonnes of CO2 have not been emitted into the atmosphere as a result of the switch from diesel taxis into electric taxis.
I think the idea of giving them free rides is a fantastic idea, especially since the Queen is so important to this country, and London especially. She attracts so many visitors from all overseas and other parts of the country. Giving them free rides is just something I don't think they're going to believe. They'll probably think I'm winding them up, and I honestly can't wait to see what their reaction is at the end of the journey when they learn it. It looks like a cab, even though it's a classy, modern-looking vehicle. They retain the iconic look, and it's something that tourists in particular love. It's made my life so much easier as a cab driver, it really has. It's by far the best taxi I've ever driven. It's so very smooth, quiet, much cheaper to run. We're on zero emissions most of the time, which is a big bonus, very important. And as regards all the features in it, it's all modern, all modernised now. Things are so much easier to use, especially things like the wheelchair ramp, which is integrated under the floor. So you pull it up, out, in, and your passengers away.
There you go, only 3 taxis offering that service. A little bit stingy if you ask me, so you'll have to be lucky to find yourself in one. There are plenty of other taxi services available in the capital in the build-up to the Queen's Jubilee and what is expected to be a very busy long weekend in the capital on the roads. Right, we're taking a short break now, but stay with us. We'll remind you of our top story and what businesses might look like in 30 years. How will new technology help or hinder them in the future?
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's just have a reminder of our top story from today. The Mayor of London has said that Downing Street operates in a culture of law breaking. It comes as Sue Gray is set to release her report on the Partygate scandal. The senior civil servant is now free to publish her full report on the parties after the Met Police wound up their investigation. Well, the Met didn't name the 83 individuals who have been fined. The report, though, could leave the PM with more political embarrassment, though. Gray is contacting the ones she wants to name over the weekend ahead of the publication, which is expected to be next week.
There is no other street in the country where more people have broken the law than Downing Street. There is no other street in the country where more fines have been issued. A culture of law breaking clearly took place in Downing Street. Bring your own bottle, bring your own karaoke machine, bring your own suitcase full of booze. And it beggars belief that at the same time as the Prime Minister was making rules, he was breaking them.
Well, Sadiq Khan, who we have heard from just there, has also said today he is fighting a war on poisonous air with his plans to consult Londoners to expand the ultra-low emission zone to cover almost all of the capital. The ULEZ boundary will expand from the north and south circular roads to all of Greater London from August 29th next year. Drivers of vehicles which do not comply with minimum emissions standards are charged a daily fee of £12.50 for entering the zone. Well, some Conservative MPs have said this will only worsen the cost of living crisis.
The benefits of the world's first ultra-low emission zone in central London and inner London, we reduced by almost a half the toxic air. We've seen more schools, homes and care homes in central London being in areas where the air is lawful. Unfortunately, we've not seen the same progress in outer London. And when you look at the evidence in relation to those parts of our city which have the largest number of deaths linked with air quality, they're in boroughs in outer London, they're in Barnet, they're in Bromley, they're in Croydon, they're in Havering. And I think everybody in our city should have the right to breathe clean air. So we're consulting genuinely with all Londoners in relation to what their views are in relation to this.
Now, a new report from an acclaimed future envisioner has predicted how businesses will serve us in 30 years and how tech will change the landscape of owning a business. Well, the Chief Envisioning Officer, Dave Coplin, has looked into the past as well as the emerging tech from today, which could become mainstream in 2050. Well, the report he's done predicts intelligent virtual clones that will be able to manage workload while business owners focus on priority tasks. Let's hear more.
If you think about where technology's been in the last 30 years, and what we thought about in the 1990s about how it would play out, are there any lessons we could learn about how technology might evolve from 2020 to 2050? So for someone like me, I've spent 3 decades working in the technology industry. I work with Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Google. It's just as beautiful because you get to explore, where we've come from. In the 90s, for example, even though the internet was a thing and mobile phones were a thing, nobody predicted smartphones or the World Wide Web or e-commerce or anything like that. We just didn't see it. And the fact that we would be here today, recording a live video interview in different locations on a platform that is in neither of our locations but is in the cloud, and then we can create content that will go around the world. Nobody could perceive that. And so learning from that, you can then look at technologies that are coming down the road, like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and you start to paint a picture of this really different world that we might be in 30 years from now.
And with that in mind, it is really hard to predict where it's going, as you just said. But what to you is the most interesting bit of technology that you're seeing that might kind of progress to be, in our everyday lives and really change the landscape of where we are in 20, 50 years?
So it's really a combination of two technologies. We're used to a technology called artificial intelligence. We use it every day, hundreds of times a day, in fact, every time we type on our smartphone or make a search or whatever it might be. But when you combine artificial intelligence with a new kind of computer, it's called a quantum computer. And these are computers that are infinitely more powerful than today's computers. You end up with just the most amazing opportunities. So, for example, in the next 30 years, computer scientists and scientists think it's possible that you and I might be able to upload our consciousness into the internet and create like a digital avatar, digital version of you that would behave just like you do and be able to interact with other digital avatars. I think about it, from the context of a small business owner. What if I could create, Dave's business persona, and then while I'm asleep, it's off traveling around the world looking for deals, trying to help me win business. And I wake up in the morning and my little digital avatar pops up as a hologram on my kitchen counter and say, "Hey, listen, Dave, while you were sleeping, I was in Canada. And let me tell you, I've found this amazing opportunity." That's the stuff that becomes possible. And what I love about it is, as I, even as I listen to myself now, I'm thinking, yeah, that's just like science fiction. But it would have been the same if we were in the 90s and I was going to tell you that you'd have a little device in your pocket that would have access to every fact our society has ever known over the last 70,000 years. You'd be like, yeah, there's no way. But here we are. It's all to play for.
So it looks as if that kind of technology that you've just illustrated to us then could really kind of democratize kind of startup businesses, entrepreneurship, and kind of change the world of business.
Yeah, I really think so. And it's why, in the report I wrote, I think it gives, especially small businesses, they can be global businesses by default. And I know we've always said that, oh, because the web, you can be a global business. I'm like, this is really a thing. And actually, you no longer need to think about the borders or boundaries as we have done in traditional terms. And it just opens up the potential from what you can do. The other bit I love about it, and this is supposed to have been always the true gift of technology, is as a business leader, you don't want to be buried in the weeds of the business. I know as a small business owner, you worry about the money, the finances, the sales pipeline, the product, but you worry about all of these things, but that takes you away from the magic that you bring to the business, the thing that got you into business in the first place. And I think anything that takes that drudgery, the robotic part of what you do away, empowering you, that's the sweet spot. That's what M-Track is trying to do, in a 2020s version of the technology that's available. And I just think the ethos behind what Virgin Money are doing is what then propels us with technologies like AI and like quantum to really, if imagine being in business and having that kind of capability, and having access to it just as a startup. It's really, really empowering, exciting, the kind of things that we're going to be able to do.
How should businesses go about predicting this? How should they kind of start landscaping their ideas around how technology could change?
As someone who's spent the last 30 years trying to predict the future, it's hard work and you never get it right. What you're better to do as a business leader is to let go of the specifics of the technology. You don't need to be ahead of the curve. You don't need to be reading Wired magazine every month or whatever it is, but instead focus on what can I do to be more resilient, to be more agile as a leader, or to make my people more agile, such that whatever the technology does, wherever it goes, whatever the new opportunities or challenges are, I know that I'm ready to take advantage of them. So it's that idea of being resilient, that idea of, continual learning. So whatever experience I've just had, what can I learn from that? How can I make the next one better? Those are the hallmarks, I think, that will help you be successful in all aspects of your life, not just in business, as we go through into the next 30 years.
Chief Envisioning Officer, what a title. Right, we're taking a short break now, but stay with us for our final parts. Today is World Endangered Species Day. We'll take you to an exhibition in the capital, helping us know the plight of the chimpanzee.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to our final part this evening. Now, London Bridge is going bananas for World Endangered Species Day. That's today, if you didn't know. And a new exhibition in the capital is hoping to shed light on the decline of the chimpanzee population around the world. Well, public artists and activists, Gilly and Mark, are behind the new works, which will feature 28 chimps demonstrating 18 different behaviours such as love and grief. Henry has been hearing more.
It showcases 28 chimps in all types of different behaviours, very similar to human behaviours, doesn't it, Mark?
Yeah, look, we thought it was World Endangered Species Day that we actually get the public to realise that chimps, 98% sharing our DNA, are very, very endangered and very, very threatened. And in fact, they are our family, and we want people to engage with them, understand them. They express grief. They laugh, they have love and happiness, they fight, all the same emotions that we do as humans, they have those same emotions.
As you say, this is coinciding with World Endangered Species Day. When was the first time that you encountered this problem with chimps?
Well, we've known for a while that, chimps are threatened, like so many endangered species are, and we did go a couple of years ago to Uganda to actually see the chimps in the wild and to understand a little bit better about the reasons why they're endangered. So we traveled to Uganda to the Kibale forest, and we actually saw them in their natural habitat, which was so wonderful. But we were also educated about the human-wildlife conflict that they were going through and how really their biggest threat is humans, amazingly enough.
I think the most important thing, and why we're doing this exhibition, why we're talking to you, which thank you very much, is to make people aware that our wildlife, and chimps in particular, are diminishing. People just don't know that. In the last 30 years, 80% of the chimp population has been wiped out. And at the current projections, they're saying that within the next 30 years, all species will be extinct from the Earth. So can you imagine a planet without any chimps on it? That's what's happening, sadly.
That's a really alarming stat, isn't it, Mark?
Horrible, absolutely horrible.
It's frightening, and like Mark said, a lot of people don't know this. So by bringing the chimps to London and showcasing, which we've tried to make as accurate as possible, we're really hoping that people can get up close to them, get to learn about them, get knowledge about what's happening, and then learn to love them, and then in turn want to help take care of them and look after them.
It's worth pointing out our biggest hero, I guess greatest influence, has been Sir David Attenborough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And his quote that he's getting repeated over and over again, I'm not paraphrasing it, but he says, how can you care for something that you don't actually know and understand?
Yeah.
And he said, so it's so important that people in London love chimps, and only then will they want to care and protect chimps.
So, as you say, these works have been unveiled in London today. How can people learn about these chimps then?
I'm sure with such an amazing backdrop, the whole of London's going to want to go there and have a look at them. And on every chimp base, we have an amazing plaque that talks about the chimp and the behaviour that they're showing us. And also there's a QR code which will direct you directly to the Love the Last website, where all about them, and then donate to our amazing charity partner WWF UK, and with all that help and support, hopefully we're going to be able to save these incredible animals.
I was actually going to ask about your aims from the project. Is it more about raising awareness, or is it about raising money for the charity, or both?
A little bit of both, isn't it, Mark?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, awareness is very, very important, because without knowledge, people, it's going back again to David Attenborough's quote, without the knowledge and the love, people won't care enough to actually support and want to take care of the animals. So I think it's a little bit of both. So hopefully they're going to get up close to the animals, learn to love the chimps, and then want to help the charity.
Yeah, and it's so important. Look, WWF really only survive by donations. They're stopping hunters. They're helping with conservation. They're already doing the job, and they're the boots on the ground. 99% DNA they have in common with us. They are our family. In fact, we were just sort of talking before that we have a common ancestor. So genetically we're linked to chimps. And when you understand that these beautiful creatures are disappearing before our eyes, people to really know this and get on board and help protect.
But not only that, the sculptures are fun. The chimps are doing great things. I mean, there's a couple of them having a boxing match. There's the loving mother. There's laughing chimps. There's hooting chimps. There's even the big tool-making chimp. It's wonderful to see so many shared Instagram posts and hashtags for Chimps are Family where people are having fun with them. And, that's so important. That's all part of getting to know them and getting to love them.
Yeah, it's interesting. As public artists, we love working in bronze. The reason for that is that people can climb on, they can put their hands around them. This isn't, an art gallery where you get shot if you touch a piece of art. We want people to kiss and hug and take photographs. So we encourage the public to come out and do that. We love seeing people standing on the top of our sculptures.
That happens a lot, by the way. Yeah. But that's all. So, like Mars says, we encourage that and that's all part of the learning experience.
That's unveiled today at London Bridge City, so do take a look if you're in the area. Right, finally this evening, a new adaptation of Julia Donaldson's children's book, The Paper Dolls, is coming to the capital from today for children ages 3 to 7. Well, the acclaimed picture book has been developed into a 45-minute long puppet show that tells the story of a little girl who makes a string of paper dolls and takes them by the hand on a fantastical adventure. Well, Hebe spoke to the creative director of Polka Dot Theatre, who are behind the play.
So The Paper Dolls is a story about a young girl who in our play is called Rosie, who's at home with her mum. And the mum gets out some paper and starts cutting the paper and making a string of paper dolls for Rosie. And we see Rosie colouring in all of these different paper dolls and creating characters for them. And then in the play, these characters come to life. So it's really about the way that Rosie has not only got these paper dolls that she's drawn in, but actually really believes that they come alive, and with the kind of with our sort of range of brilliant theatrical techniques, we've been able to really bring these dolls to life.
So tell us how you're turning this this book, and it's really heavy on pictures, isn't it, into a theatre performance?
Yeah, I think that's always a big challenge, how to turn a book that can be read in 5 or 10 minutes into a piece of theatre that's going to keep an audience really engaged for 45 minutes. We decided to use puppetry, so the main characters in the story, who are in our story a sister and brother, are both quite large puppets. And the story is told with two actresses who also play the mother and a few other characters. And the story is told using puppetry with music that is composed by a brilliant composer called Julian Butler. And we really sort of talked a lot about who these characters are and developed the relationships. So there's a lot more sibling rivalry between the sister and brother that's kind of perhaps hinted at in the book, and we know without giving away too many spoilers that towards the end of the book the paper dolls are cut up by this boy who in our story is the brother. So we've really developed those relationships and expanded the kind of the shift into the imaginative worlds.
And that kind of leads me on to my next question, is why did you decide to kind of take this specific book and put it on a stage for people to come and enjoy and interpret as well?
Our mission in terms of the work that we produce for children and for family audiences is to help children navigate their way in the world. So I'm always looking out for stories or talking to playwrights about kind of new ideas which are really thinking about work that's going to really nourish children. I think there's a lot of really great, exciting, fun stuff for children out there in terms of theatre, in terms of TV, which is really great, but maybe doesn't challenge them, or maybe doesn't kind of represent the world in a way which is kind of fully respecting their emotions or their perceptions or some of the things that they're going through in their lives. So that's kind of what I'm always looking for, work that I kind of talk about, kind of work that's nourishing, work that's going to stay with them. We have lots of schools that come to see the productions we do, and teachers packs and resources that are there. So with this, I thought actually this is, I love the fact that it's about a child's imagination coming to life.
Well, Paper Dolls is on at the Polka Dot Adventure Theatre until the 7th of August. Let's just take one final check on the weather. The cloud will continue to recede eastwards and showers will gradually ease tonight. Clear and mild overnight as well, lows of around 11 degrees. Tomorrow we'll see some sunshine in the morning, but patchy cloud will become increasingly widespread through the day. Don't rule out any showers later on though. And Sunday, a very similar picture, some more sun perhaps, before a small drop in temperature on Monday, a rainy day as well. Right, that is all we got time for this evening. Thank you for joining us. More news from our news team though tomorrow with Tanya Francis with The World This Week, a look back at the global headlines from the past 7 days. Do tune in for that. But for now, from me, take care.